Hi everyone, this is Katherine. I'm the founder and CEO of DeFi. Today, I want to talk about this emerging concept. What exactly defines DeFi, decentralized finance, why we think it matters, and what are our approaches to this problem. Before we talk about our project, I want to start a bigger question. Let's talk about data. For people who work in advertising, well, actually it doesn't matter which industry you're in. Finance, advertising, driverless cars, Google, Amazon, the highly targeted consumer recommendation engines in Amazon, or the highly trained algorithm of driverless cars. At the foundation of all this is data. And the foundation of finance industry is data. Because finance, where all financial products are about the pricing of risk. So what are some of the problems facing the data industry? For the finance industry, the massive data leaks faced by some of the central credit bureaus have caught many, many people's attentions. In addition to that, in addition to the necessary data already collected being leaked, the valuable data, massive data about people who can be used in valuable places are siloed, most cases just sitting there in different government branches, in financial institutions. And those data are out of fear of misuse of those data. The government or financial institutions are unable to share those data or unleash the potential of the data in any way. And on top of that, people are losing control of data, as can be shown in the incidents of Facebook and Google. And in some of the traditional industries, like in the developing markets like China or Japan, in the for traditional players, out of fear of competitors getting hold of the data powerhouses like Tencent, Alibaba, they're unwilling to share data with each other for that reason. What's the consequence in the financial market? The consequence of the financial market is closer than we thought. Number one, majority of the people in developing markets are simply unbanked. And according to the World Economic Forum, access to credit or being able to having that ability to borrow money, to get money, is the best way to solve poverty. And what an underdeveloped credit market means is not just underbanked populations. It's about a very, very inefficient credit underlying foundation for all these markets. It's about building simply wrong data profiles or credit profiles about you that are actually used everywhere. In the US, your credit profile are not just used to decide whether you can afford to borrow money. It's actually used in many HR departments of company to decide whether you can be hired for this job. And it's being used, your credit profiles are being used in many, many developing countries by the government to decide whether you're worthy of or being entitled to earn the entitlement of many government benefits. Some of the existing approaches already happened in the last couple of years after this problem caught the attention of the data powerhouses. For example, in 2016, Apple, for the first time, launched differential privacy, one of the first encryption techniques that were built in all our iPhones. For example, in use of emojis recommendations, they added by introducing mathematical noise to your input. They're able to generate aggregated output without actually using your original data. And for Google, they introduced federated learning so that instead of having to collect your original data and send to the Google servers, they can calculate on the mobile end and then collect only the updates to the cloud side before eventually returning the final result, which is no longer considered a violation of privacy. And Intel, as well as the rest of the all major hardware companies, starting in 2015, they launched this encryption technique called SGX, and it's been going through two iterations, aiming to partition part of your hardware chips that's installed on all of your computers for the most sensitive computation, so that neither the data or the computation itself can be exposed. What we think are the right approach to this problem is a combination of all these. In addition to introducing a blockchain as a distributed ledger and an immutable ledger to record exactly how data is used, how data is transitioned, and how data is eventually utilized or commercialized in each of the use cases, we also use secure multi-party computation, combining software-based technology and the hardware-based technology, and I just mentioned, from Intel to SMPC, from secret sharing to gobble circuit, to make sure that when data are actually being computed, none of the original data can be exposed. Once you have a robust secure computation infrastructure in place, what can eventually achieve is that each of the company can simply store the data in their own servers. And when computation happens, data doesn't have to travel out of their own server for the joint computation. What that means is that it's able to now unleash the massive volume of data that are currently just sitting there in each of the company's servers or the government servers. But at the same time, we can still utilize and make use of those data. As I mentioned, access to credit is one of the best ways to solve poverty, according to the World Economic Forum. So we think by providing a very robust credit infrastructure, especially for developing countries, we are able to help with the poverty issues. And also, as those countries move from an infrastructure-led growth to consumption-led growth, a well-rounded consumer credit system can be very helpful in this way as well. And Southeast Asia countries and some of the South Asian countries as well are the perfect place to start because of many factors here. It has a very large population, it has a very favorable demography, and the rapid rates of technology, mobile adoption are just amazing. And many of the countries here have very low banked population, giving rise to a lot of unseen opportunities in some of the countries here. And the fintech space is growing at double-digit growth almost every quarter since last year. Here are some of the numbers that indicate this growth, not just in the size of the market, but also in the growth of the fintech space. So exactly what do our product look like? This is the infrastructure of underlying DeFi protocol. At the infrastructure layer of the protocol, we use blockchain as the immutable ledger. We use smart contract to decide when a transaction is confirmed, where it should send this piece of data, to whom, and how it's utilized. And by using smart contract, nobody can violate or misuse this data in any other way. Secure postman service is something we build ourselves to make sure there's a secure transfer of the data to the right places so that they not fall into the right hands. And in the most extreme circumstances, we also use hardware-based trusted computation environment so that it doesn't matter is the algorithm itself, the computation itself, or the data, none of the original secrets can be exposed. And to our consumers, doesn't matter if the end users or the institutions utilizing this protocol, they can plug into the network by accessing our easy-to-use SDK or consumer portal. Why do we know this technology works? The product based on this, some components of the open source technology have been deployed in China, being one of the first blockchain-based technology of this kind to pass the POC process of the banks. And because of that, this technology is now part of the partnership with some of the biggest names in the blockchain space: Consensus, Hyperledger, Oasis Lab, and Ontology. And this is some of the screenshots of the POC deployed in some of the banks in China. For Southeast Asia, we have a two-step plan for this market. On the 2B end, we're going to start by forming a credit risk alliance, starting with Blacklist. A blacklist is a list of names other institutions want to access before they decide whether they should issue a loan to this person at all. If the person is on the blacklist, very likely he defaulted in the past, overborrowed from multiple places, or simply committed fraud. We have so far accumulated over 1 million names across Indonesia, Vietnam, and Philippines. And after that, we're going to go into overborrowing solutions, indicating whether this person has overborrowed while he initiated a loan request to this person, whether this person already borrowed from many other places, one of the most common fraud committed in this industry. And following this path, later this year, we're going to introduce credit scores. Very much like in the US, developing countries will eventually form a much more robust credit infrastructure. And the end goal of that is a commonly used credit scores that most of the industry across countries can use. And the 2C front, we're going to start with 2 apps. The first one already launched is called CoinStop. It's a one-stop portal to manage all your digital assets, including your personal data, because we believe that your personal data should be one of your most important digital assets. And through that app, you can upload your own credit profiles. You can decide how you want to use that credit profile. And the more data you upload, the more it can be used by different institutions. And more likely, you are going to have your up-to-date credit profiles accessed and utilized directly by the banks. And by giving you the preference controls, you can decide exactly how the data want to be used and who are able to access the data, instead of having your data, in most of the cases today, being traded in the black market in a highly insecure way. And CreditMe is a one-stop shop for all the loans. The loans company can, instead of pushing you whatever they want of the day, they give you the most suited products based on, again, your profiles. Targeted market, in addition to some of the Southeast Asian countries, we have also included some of the largest countries with unbanked populations like India. The total population here is 2 billion population, majority of which is unbanked. We believe in those countries, that's where we can make decentralized finance, inclusive finance, can make the most impact. Q1 this year, we already accumulated over 1 million blacklists, and as well as some of the crucial data in the credit data market. We're now in the process of signing with 6 partners across the 3 countries. And later this year, our goal is to expand that number into 50 other financial institutions, including the non-traditional institutions like lending apps, as well as some of the banks. I think that's all for today. Thank you very much.